Hi, Shannon Waller here, and welcome to Team Success. Today, I am thrilled to bring you a conversation with a very good friend, a very good client, and now I actually also got to contribute to his book. This is Sunny Kaila of IT by Design, and he has just written a fabulous book called The Secret to Building Winning Global Teams. And you know me, if you're listening to this podcast, I am passionate about teams. I am passionate about teamwork. I am passionate about the mindset that it takes to really bring out the best of people at work. And Sunny, for me, you are someone who is 100% like-minded, and yet you do it on a scale that nobody else that I know does. So I am super thrilled to have you here to share your wisdom, your knowledge, your experience, and your unique background that sets you up for success to really be an expert on how to build winning global teams. So Sunny, thank you so much for joining me. And I'm very excited to talk about this book.
Thank you for having me here, Shannon. The overall impact that you have on my life as a coach, I love the 10X, the workshop, to everything that you share as a coach. And since I joined Strategic Coach, my thinking overall is now beyond 10X now, just because I'm surrounded with so many amazing people here at Strategic Coach, and you have had a huge impact on my life.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And ditto, you're having the same on me. So there are so many things we could talk about. You have a fascinating background, which we'll get a little bit into. But I'd love to know, well, first of all, what do people need to know about Sunny? You have a fabulous company with your wife, who is incredible, amazing force of nature in her own right. So let's give us a little bit of background, and then we'll jump into what was your impetus for writing this book. But first of all, tell us a little bit more about you, Sunny, because your disposition it matches your name, in case anyone needs to know. So tell us a little bit about Sunny. Where'd you come from? What are you up to? All the good things.
Yeah. So Shannon, I was born in India, and I was about 17 when I moved to New Jersey. Our whole idea was just to make some money, send some money back home to make my parents debt-free, and then probably, then see what to do. And I moved to New Jersey, very close to New York City. And then I pumped gas for the first year because I couldn't get any other job. I couldn't speak English. And then I was 18 when I was able to get my license. And then I'm like, guys, what's next? My roommates. And they were driving New York City yellow cab. So I went to TLC in New York City, got my yellow cab license, drove taxi for another year and a half or so to make enough money to make my father debt-free. And then I asked him, hey, I want to put myself through college, and I want to now save, if you're okay, and then pay for my college education. So I saved, and I continued to drive taxi 7 days, 12 hours at night, and go to college daytime to learn English and also learn computer languages. And computer engineering I completed in 2000. And then I worked for a small, medium-sized business in New York City as their system admin. And then I started knocking doors upstairs, downstairs. As you know, in New York City, a lot of buildings. Even in just one building, you have a lot of small businesses that you can probably build a business around small businesses in one building.
Wow.
So I started doing IT consulting for small businesses in 2003 and bootstrapped IT by Design, founded IT by Design, and then later my wife also joined me after a few years. And now we are getting close to 1,000 people company, privately held, in 3 countries in the US, actually 4 countries, US, Canada, India, and the Philippines.
Nice.
And we do IT solutions for small businesses, but we do it through other IT companies called MSPs. So we are kind of a MSP of MSP, IT managed service provider of other IT managed service providers that are IT companies for small businesses.
Amazing.
In America.
Well, I know this is part of the book, actually, but I love it that probably who used to be your competitor is actually now your collaborator and your client. That's kind of amazing. And part of your story, I know, is from taxi to tech. And I know Dan Sullivan's talked about this with you on one of our podcasts about just how amazing your immigrating to the US and then actually your whole journey is so impressive. And it takes incredible commitment and courage, part of our 4C's growth formula. And then obviously the capabilities and the confidence that now gives you. From bootstrapping to 1,000 people, that's impressive.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you. And I heard one of your podcasts, and it was more every entrepreneur have a unique story. Mm-hmm. And sure. I think just like other entrepreneurs, I have my own unique entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah.
And it's just when I started in 2003 as the IT company for small mm-hmm. businesses, and a lot of customers were hedge funds.
Oh.
And their tolerance level to systems going down was right. almost like minus, because mm-hmm. just Bloomberg going down for a few seconds means millions of dollars of damage. Mm-hmm. So we had to build very quality services to be the IT company for those businesses. But one of the need was 24/7 because right. systems don't sleep, servers don't sleep. I'm like, how do I do this? And one day I was, Shannon, at Equinox Gym in New York City, right next to Grand Central Station. That's where our office was. And I was, in the evening, I will go to the gym. So I picked up this New York Times Digest, that's New York Times. I'm on elliptical. I will read the articles. And one of the articles was, there's such a shortage of IT talent. You're talking about 2003, mm-hmm. with the Y2K, okay. And then a lot of things were happening post-internet. A lot of companies were building their global centers. And I'm like, in the IT sector, if there's one person who is well-versed in both cultures, means the friction normally is getting quality right. talent and quality support from offshore. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I know Wall Street standards. I know what Wall Street companies are looking for hedge funds. Mm-hmm. And I can take some trainers from here and build our own talent standards by hiring people from colleges, universities, and people where they have probably 3 to 5 years of experience, and then kind of have them in a learning and development division. And so we built a great learning and development division where people learn like soft skills, like communication, mm-hmm. culture skills, like American culture, to overall just really having effective communication from listening to verbal and everything else. And then, of course, then you can teach people technical skills. That's always growing. And that's mm-hmm. how I built my first group of team members. And that did so well for our business that other friends who mm-hmm. were my competitor, friendly competitors,
right.
They're like, Sunny, can I borrow your 24/7 capability? That is really, really amazing what you have built. So that's where, as a go-giver, I'm like, sure.
Yep.
Here it is. So one person, second person in my peer group, third person, then 10 out of my 10 peer group members, they started using our 24/7 network operations center. Yeah. And then I'm like, there is an opportunity to go beyond Manhattan, go beyond New York City. And that's when I stopped selling directly to SMBs, small businesses, mm-hmm. IT services. I'm like, I can go to other IT service companies where they need this, 24/7. And then I will have kind of boots on the ground in the entire US. Then my reach will expand 10x. So that's what I did. I shifted my focus from selling direct to SMBs, and I started selling to my competitors. And they became now we have 400 competitors that are our clients.
I love that business model too. But because you had the vision, this is a great Dean Jackson model, marketing guru, if anyone's interested. And he talks about vision, capability, reach, VCR, right? So you had the vision, you had the capability, and then you dramatically expanded your reach by working with these now 400 other MSPs. That's amazing. Wow, very cool. So you've done this for yourself and you're like, this is really cool. But then I'm curious, what compelled you to write the book? Because you've been doing this since 2003.
Yeah.
So there must have been something that happened that actually had you go, oh, well, first of all, I know if I'm just telling the same story over and over and over and over again, it's like, okay, I need to write this down. So it makes it easier. But what was the impetus for you to really put this on paper? And I have to tell you, I've read the book numerous times now, little part that I got to contribute. It is such a well-written, clear how to, like everything you need to know is in this book. It's one of my favorite books, just saying. So I'm super excited to share it with people. But what really caused you to write this book, Sunny? You've written another one, Talentpreneurship, which is another great book. But this one, obviously, there was some impetus. So I'm curious as to what that was.
Yeah, somewhere I read that, don't take your experience with you when you leave this earth. Put it on a piece of paper so that other generations can learn from your life experience.
I like that.
And then coach gives you a great support structure where you meet a lot of great entrepreneurs where they have written other books. So just kind of really surrounding myself with like-minded people where they have done this, and kind of really that helped me increase my confidence to write book. My first one, Talentpreneurship, last year. And this year is second. And I think you and Dan also inspires me. I know Dan is like a one book a quarter.
Yep.
And I'm like, I can at least do one a year. And so it was time for me to write my second book. And I'm like, what do I do where is so unique about me, or what I have done in my life where other people, they want to do that? And post-COVID, remote hiring, or remote teams, or remote work, it accelerated, Shannon, because, all of a sudden during COVID, everyone was working remote. And then a lot of people started doing borderless hiring beyond their city borders, state borders, country borders.
Yep.
But it was a new thing for them. But we have been doing this from over 15 years. And I'm like, there is so much experience I have that I can share with others where they can learn from my success and my learnings. That's what kind of basically was the why of writing my book. And this is one thing that we have done really, really well. And we are still learning and growing, but we have built so many teams for different businesses, and the teams in our India office and our Philippines. And a lot of questions that I was getting in the last 2-3 years, especially now with so many jobs available in cybersecurity and AI, it's hard to find enough quality talent.
Right.
And people are desperate to hire from other countries, but at the same time, they have this fear, uncertainty, and doubt, like how to do it well.
Yeah.
Because when they hear sometimes stories where things didn't work out, it was quality issue, or it's just the culture acceptance for their clients.
Yeah.
Could be culture alignment of the team. They have done really well in terms of leading teams locally, but they don't know how to lead multicultural teams, especially teams where they are in other countries.
Yeah.
And so I think in general, from Fortune 5,000 companies, Fortune 500 companies, whenever I travel, meet a lot of people, common question is, can you share your best practices that you have used? And I'm like, leaders in the bigger, smaller, medium-sized companies, now it's not nice to have, it's must have, kind of working with diverse teams, multicultural teams. Even if you are within the borders, still you have a lot of multicultural talent. And when it comes to global talent, where they are offshore, then same principles apply.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I can share that with the world. So that's why I wrote this book.
That's great. And I know that you are also a fan, as Dan and I and others are, of Peter Zion, who is great, just a brilliant geopoliticist, talks about what's going on with the world. And then Dan wrote a book about increasing, he calls it melt costs, money, energy, labor, and transportation.
Yeah.
And as we were chatting just before, you said, yeah, that also plays into it. So describe what you see happening in the world and almost the decline of globalization, right? And yet you still are one who can help people transform the borders, be borderless.
Yeah.
Talk about that too, because I think people need to learn, know how to work with other cultures. And by the way, there's cultures within a country.
Yeah.
North and south part of the US is a good example.
Yes.
Multicultural, as you said, but that people reason isn't the only strategic reason to kind of have a global team.
Yeah. No, thank you for that question. So Dan talks about MELT formula, cost of money, cost of energy, cost of labor, and cost of transportation, that for the next few decades, is going to continue to go up. And an entrepreneur who can be proactive to figure out how to control those costs where they stay competitive in the marketplace.
Right.
Because the cost of labor is normally for any service company is, around 40% of the top line is normally the labor cost.
Okay.
So any business where normally the benchmark is about 32%, especially in the technology sector, in the service business, if you're having direct labor COGS around 32%, you're doing well. And if that major part of the cost of doing business is going to continue to go up, and you need a strategy to make sure that you are monitoring, managing that cost in a way by using some unconventional thinking, using some innovative ways, and building a global team where you think your front stage activities, which requires more customer interaction. So strategic coach, front stage, backstage concept. So a lot of backstage where sometimes it needs to be done off hours as well.
Right.
I mean, you cannot, for example, bring a technical outage in the middle of the day to apply updates and everything. And you have to do it after hours. So if you do ask your local team to do that, then the culture score goes down because you're asking people to work overnight and especially after hours, just like hospitals.
Yeah.
And the second piece is your cash confidence goes down because you're spending a lot more money with the night shift and overtime, because that increases your labor cost beyond 32%, beyond 40%. So for many different reasons, in terms of having your cash and culture score up, you can integrate a global team to protect your confidence with those two C's.
Okay, I'm writing this down. Cash and culture.
Cash.
And it's interesting because so often it's one or the other that people go for. We are talking about having a better cash situation, and it, as we'll talk about later, an improved culture. And that totally, for any business owner, leads to a direct increase in confidence. So that's exciting. And just to add to this, I mean, these melt costs are going to keep increasing, as you said, over the next few decades. And so having a strategy, and you've got some great case studies and samples in the book of people who are saying, yeah, I cut my cost 10, 20, 30%. So we're able to be more competitive. We're able to provide better service, right? Because you have that 24/7 coverage. It's exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, strategy is my Clifton strengths. It's number 2 is to be strategic, and it's a maximizer strategy. Maximizer's number 1. I think that's partly why I'm so excited about it. And the way that you describe it with examples, with numbers, with charts, including what to expect to pay in the different countries, the difference between India and the Philippines, the tax rates. Oh my gosh, you are like, you are sharing everything.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal.
And Shannon, I just want to add one thing there that, 30 to 70% labor cost savings, depending on what your front stage and backstage looks like. If you do it well, you can save about 30% to 70% just by integrating some aspects of your business with the talent from low-cost markets, low-cost talent markets. And that normally comes to your EBITDA or your profitability. And any company, if you are especially investors funded, it's all about EBITDA. And then when you bring any dollar to the bottom line, the multiplier normally is like 7 to 10x, even for a small business.
Right.
So that dollar is not a dollar. The valuation goes up because that dollar will be multiplied by 10, 20 to get your valuation of the company or the stock value. So your stock value goes up, and it's an exponential increase when you bring 30 to 70% down. Even if you are not able to do 30, 70%, you can, like just some aspects. But the biggest impact is on your team as well.
Okay.
Because now your team, in especially the technology sector, Shannon, normally the conventional way is having some people on call when they go home. If server goes down, a network goes down, firewall, any kind of mission critical database goes down,
Right.
email system goes down, then you want those people to have some people on call. And when stuff happens always with technology, we have seen that recently with the global outage as well. And if your team members are having dinner with the family, or they're kind of in the middle of the night and you ask them to get up and go fix these critical situations, then the free time and everything that we talk about is not going to be there.
Yeah.
So then their overall morale goes down because they don't feel well rested. And when you have another team who is taking care of stuff in a different time zone in your non-business hours and weekends, then that free time and focus time for your team is there, and your team is happy, they're more engaged, they're working on high payoff activities, they're not doing boring work, because boring work or backstage work can be done by AI, can be done by teams working in other time zones.
Yes. I'm like, yes to all the things. All right, so let's get into some details about that. Let's talk about the what. And I love how your book's broken out into the why, the what, the how. Pretty much how my brain works. So I really appreciate that. So understanding the global talent market. Again, I love it when someone doesn't just talk about something, but actually delivers real concrete information, which you absolutely do. So let's talk about India, the Philippines, and other countries, which you also have had exposure to. What do people need to know about really understanding the global talent market?
Yeah. So the first thing is, like we use a lot of coach tools in our business. The first thing is to really do impact filter, like what that success looks like. Because if you don't have clarity on success measures of doing what you are about to do, then you don't know if you are moving towards success or you're not. And so having that impact filter, like just having clarity on what are the business objectives, what are the goals. So that's like a starting point. Then you overall think about the activities. So the way, like, when we do the unique ability exercise or workshop, we go over all the activities that we do. What are our, unique ability? What do we enjoy? What do we don't enjoy? So that's like one aspect. Like, what are the activities that your team right now is not enjoying? It's not in their either unique ability or something that doesn't give them energy. So now you have that filter or the list of activities that needs to be delegated to a different team or team member. Now, another piece is, okay, what's possible front stage? What can be done backstage? So that gives you another filter of activities. Now you know what you need to delegate to a new team member that you're bringing in, especially if it's a offshore or global team. Now that you have so much clarity on your goal, what you want, why you want it, what are the activities that can be delegated to a global team. Now you need to decide, okay, how you want to do this in terms of their different countries, like knowing what market. Your activities clarity also gives you some direction because different countries have different strengths. Talent in different countries. So for example, India, the talent pool is huge in terms of technical skills. And in the Philippines, talent pool is huge in terms of communication skills, in terms of overall culture, US culture understanding. And that's where now your activity list gives you understanding what activities you are better delegated to a global team in India, what activities are better delegated to a global team in Philippines. So it gives you that understanding what market. And sometimes you have to leverage both markets because that also gives you a lot of business continuity and overall some, like in case there's a disaster, if there is something there in terms of political, any kind of natural disaster, then you have that failover, you have that business continuity for your business because you're doing it for a lot of reasons. And one of the main reason is 24/7 availability. And now you have clarity on the market. Now you have to see what model. Should you just go there, register a company, build a team from scratch, or you find a partner to kind of have that partnership where it's their unique trademark strength. And you can delegate to them, or you can do some kind of hybrid where you are not outsourcing or delegating the entire outcome, but someone is helping you build your own dedicated team where it's a transparent cost plus model. It's called hybrid model, where you have a lot of visibility into salaries and other pieces, and you're part of it. It's more like co-managed, and you are getting a lot more benefits in terms of cost.
Well, certainly having it done for you or the hybrid model, because you are so clearly the who for me, right? We talk about who, not how at Coach all the time. It's one of our big books.
Yeah.
And it's like the how is challenging. I mean, you list the things to understand about offshore locations and what you need to know, which is, again, it's so prescriptive. It's amazing. But it's like I could go and start that learning curve from the bottom, or I could tap into someone who's already got that learning curve figured out. They're at the top. And that means that my progress is going to be so much faster. So you really do go into some detail about that.
And you have to fill out less experienced transformers.
Another coach tool. It's true. Knowing what we know now, what will we do differently next time? So I want to talk a little bit more about India and about the Philippines, because again, I just found it fascinating. I've never been to the Philippines, but I have had the chance to go to India. And I've been to, I was talking about this in a workshop yesterday. I've had a chance to go to New Delhi and then to Agra, which was wonderful. Still have to get to Mumbai, like to go to Goa, a few places on my list to go. Can you go into a little bit more detail about if I do want to tap into India or the Philippines, what are their strengths? What are some of the cultural differences that you coach people on how to make sure there's a good bridge to Americans or Canadians? And then same with the Philippines. I'm just curious, what are some of the nuances? Because I find that fascinating.
Yeah. So because you have been to Agra, so if you want to, on a lighter note, want to build like a Taj Mahal type of, you need that talent.
That's where the Taj Mahal is, if you don't know, is Agra. Yep.
So India market is, I think a lot of companies, especially tech companies, they have been doing business there from now over 2 decades.
Yeah.
So market matured a lot in the last 2 decades.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to number of people that are graduating every year with technical degrees, comm science, computer engineering, the talent pool is much, much bigger when it comes to technical talent.
Mm-hmm.
And in the Philippines, a lot of companies have built their customer service centers.
Mm-hmm.
You name it, United to American Express to all the bigger companies. They have been doing that probably from 2 decades now, where a lot of market maturity when it comes to BPOs, when it comes to business process outsourcing. Mm-hmm. People where they need to be on the phone and they need to kind of solve customers' issues that are non-technical. So that's how I see it in terms of the bigger picture or like overall general sense.
Yep.
And like overall, you can develop talent anywhere. Now we are developing a lot of technical talent in the Philippines as well. Mm-hmm. But in terms of level 3, level 4, like technical heavy hitters, you can call them, the pool is much, much smaller in the Philippines than India. And when it comes to customer service skills, I do believe people normally lean towards Philippines. There is a lot more probably that overall culture understanding and communication skill set is a little bit higher. Okay. Yeah, that's how I see it.
All right. Like, there's also a time zone advantage, is there not, with the Philippines?
Yeah, both are almost the same. So Philippines is the opposite. So if it's like, 5 a.m. here is 5 p.m. there. Okay. 5 p.m. here is 5 a.m. there, but they are like 12 hours ahead of us.
Okay, that just showed my complete lack of understanding of geography. So,
yeah, so I think the time zone that you mentioned, so you're right. There's a huge advantage. With India, it's like 2-3 hours difference between India and Philippines. Okay. I think India, depending on the time savings, is like 9.5 sometimes or 10. But people there, the beauty, Shannon, is that people are used to working nighttime. If they do get US or Canada, nighttime means it's daytime in India and Philippines. They are probably the happiest people in the world because in the multinational companies that are there, all the big companies, people are used to working night shifts there. That's a norm. Okay. If they get a daytime job, that's abnormal, but they're happier. Right. And so people normally are used to work India and Philippines nighttime, which is US and Canada daytime.
Got you.
Yeah.
So fascinating. I love it. Okay. Now you have some lists and I want to rhyme them off a little bit because I think you just cover all the aspects. So you have a part where it's called choosing the right outsourcing market. I just want to give our listeners the sense of just the thoroughness of what you talk about without being overwhelming. Okay. So you talk about the thing that you really have to be clear on is chosen location aligns with any strategic goals and operational needs. So skilled labor availability, cost effectiveness, political and economic stability, cultural compatibility, time zone and proximity, because as we learned when, pandemic 2020, time zones are a thing.
It is.
Try and take care of our clients who are from all over the world. Language proficiency, infrastructure and technology, legal and compliance factors, reputation and track record, support ecosystem, which is the availability of professional networks, industry associations, and support services, among other things. Workforce attitudes and retention. There's more than one company I know that has switched their talent marketplace to be from the US to, in this case, the Philippines, really looking at executive assistants because of the attitude. Like in the Philippines, that position has esteem, it has status, it is important. People really strive, whereas the workplace attitude in the US was not that. So it's interesting. There's actually a real advantage. We might not have thought that, but there's a real advantage because other countries have different mindsets. May I say better mindsets around certain roles that North America does not. Natural disasters frequency. This was another one I found totally interesting. So those are the 12 that you say, but point out. And those are just all, I feel like I've got a 360 degree, I may not understand them all, but at least I will know the right questions and things to pay attention to. And there's some things on there that until I read them, I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't have thought of that. Yeah. Like natural disasters are a thing.
It is. So for example, in Philippines, there are many different islands and infrastructure is not very strong. So if, for example, you have EA who you need to have, like the downtime is going to impact you. Because, a lot of natural disasters happen, flooding to the internet going down, power, and sometimes the infrastructure is not strong or there is no backup. So it impacts in those situations unless you go again with a partner where the backup of the backup, the whole business continuity is ensured and people are working from the office. And one thing that I will say, Shannon, is that sometimes I go travel a lot in the especially IT conferences, and some people have kind of hired people from LinkedIn to other portals. Oh, I can just hire 5 people from here, this XYZ country. And it is really, really important to understand because, cybersecurity is real and other political factors are real, and you got to really have a good perspective on what is the political stability in that country, what is their overall attitude towards global markets. And also, like, if the people are not coming in a more like a office setup, then data theft happens to a lot of other bad stuff that I hear from entrepreneurs. It happened to them, and I kind of come across a lot of stories where, people were logging in from home, or it varies country to country, but sometimes the law of the land is not strong enough where you can kind of really deter that type of behavior. In certain countries, it's like a lot more kind of global agreements are there that you are protected as a company. So that's like one of the fear, uncertainty that I talk about in my book. And it's really, really important to understand which country are you partnering up with or building your team, and what are the pros and cons, because every country will have pros and cons. And it's really, really important to understand that. And SOC 2 compliance, like every single year we go through SOC 2 audit. SOC 2 is where they, like your biometric system to get in, to come out, not having like password written on your sticky notes and pasting it somewhere else. So all those audits are done every year, and it's very hard to get SOC 2 compliance facility. And making sure that the partner that you are having, or even if you're building your own, having security aspect, physical and cyber, that's like number one, because there are a lot of regulations. Otherwise, it can have a very negative impact on your business if you don't take care of that part.
100%. And you talk about some of the fears of outsourcing, and some of those come from horror stories that people have heard from other countries. Let's talk to an example of someone that you know, with whom you've worked to do offshoring. And one of the things I found really interesting is not only did they have, I'm talking about the Focus Technology business, but not only did they have a cost savings, it actually allowed them to scale. So can you just talk us through how at least one, if not more, businesses have kind of taken this global outsourcing strategy and building teams with your assistance and what the impact has been on their business? Because I love case studies because then this is how it happens in the real world.
Yeah.
So can you share with us a little bit more about that story?
Yeah. So Focus Technology, they're a partner out of Boston and they're IT services company. And yeah, so when they came to us, it was more of they were not happy with the service provider and they were using a company out of Philippines. So that's where we started working. But when they started experiencing the talent that we brought to the table, they're like, oh man, we never knew that this is possible. We almost kind of started drafting another strategy that we need to pull everything back to the US because we can't have this type of customer experience for our customers. So that's like where it started. But then overall, when it comes to scale, when you win, especially in the tech business and managed services, when you win new business, you have to have capability expansion to deliver on that service. Because if you don't do that in a timely manner, in more of alignment, calibration is not there, then either your culture score is going to go down because you have a lot more work coming in that your existing team is going to will be required to do. And if you don't have enough recruitment capacity or people sitting on your bench to go and take their business, then the culture score will go down because a lot more pressure on the team to deliver to a lot more clients. And being agile is very important. And if you kind of hire in advance, waiting for that new business to come in, and what if new business won't come in, then your cash score is going to go down because you have a lot of non-billable cost. And you are being proactive to hire those engineers or those technical professionals, hoping that when this is going to close in the next 2 weeks, 4 weeks, and something happens the last stage of the opportunity, and now these people are sitting there, so your profitability goes down. So that's where we come in. It's our business to keep trained people, professionals on our bench. And when our customer like Focus, they win new business, they don't need to pick up their cost in advance. They pick up the cost and aligned with the new revenue. So they are able to better predict their growth, their profitability, and their valuation.
Right.
Yeah. It's just because they're using a unique capability that we have built, which is you can scale up. And sometimes you lose business. All of a sudden, your agreement didn't get renewed. And all of a sudden now, what do? Either keep waiting for the new business to come in and your profitability goes down until the new business comes in. With us or partners where you are delegating a lot of remote work, they allow you to scale up, scale down. So if you lose business, you can say, hey, until we talk again, or the notice, I need 10 less people or 5 less people. So you are able to keep your profitability with a lot more consistency.
It becomes a variable cost that you can dial up or dial down in a very timely manner, which of course is going to be much better for profitability. The other aspect of this particular example in the book is that the offshore teams actually developed in-depth relationships with customers. So customer satisfaction went up. People were working on specific customer accounts. So it wasn't like just completely backstage, transactional type of thing. They were a core part of the company.
Integration is key. Like if you look at Coach, Toronto and Chicago, if team members are not interacting and especially the leadership, there's no exchange with on-site visits, then, that it can be like 2 different teams working very differently. But, an effective partner should be very intentional, working with the company like Focus in this case, to make sure that both teams are integrated. It's like one team. So the company that you are using to build your offshore team, their responsibility is to integrate effectively. It's like co-managed. They're both side of the leadership team. They're intentional about having one team, one goal, and they make them part of their daily huddles to weekly L10s. So the team, even though they're sitting somewhere in another country, but they feel like part of this team. They're like, oh, we're just, part of this culture. They understand the values. They understand their way of delivering service. They know all the uniques, and they are just extension of the team, just working borderless.
I so appreciate that as part of my passion for teams, because there are a couple of ways of looking at people who are in different locations, like, oh, they're just a cog in a wheel. They're just like fitting in and they don't really matter as humans. But one of the things that really impressed me about your mindset about this and how you do it is that they are part of the team. They're part of the leadership. They have got growth opportunities. They've got regular reviews. They are face-to-face with customers. They are an integral part of the business. I don't know if it wasn't what I expected or what, but it was just like, yes, when I read that. And it just means that you as a company and as a culture. And I think as you have to articulate things to other countries and other ways of doing things, you get stronger yourself. I think there's amazing byproduct to strengthen your own good company culture when you have to be so explicit about it to someone tens of thousands of miles away, right? Really, really far, or at least thousands of miles away. So I think that's the other thing that kind of enhanced my learning and my understanding was, this is not just a transactional deal. I keep saying that. It is really something that actually is the simple expansion of your organization all around the globe. And you don't lose any of the who you are part. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. Shannon, that is the secret sauce, that cultural exchange.
Yeah.
And, like great partners that we have, they take time at least once a year. The person who's working with the team or leading the team from there offshore, they go visit that team. We kind of call it like a partner retreat. We take a group of our partners to India. Now we're starting Philippines as well. And where they go visit, they spend time, they build relationships. And like now we have our conference coming up. We have about 15 people from India and Philippines coming there and to spend time with the partners here.
Yeah.
And they're going to also go to the partner's site and spend time in the bullpen of the customer here in the US. And so it's like facilitating that exchange, facilitating the environment which is conducive to relationship building. Because if your mindset is, I'm just going to delegate this to an offshore team. They are vendor, their partner, the vendor. And I just, I want this. And then that's your mindset. Then it's not going to work really well.
Right.
If your mindset is rather than just putting that job order here or position, I'm giving it to this partner, they're going to bring in this talent, but I need to hire them the way I'm hiring locally. I need to onboard them the way I'm onboarding locally. I'm going to engage them and make them part of our team, make them feel the love that my team here is feeling. Then your global team is going to work 10x harder.
Yeah.
They're going to be extremely, extremely successful in creating value for you. And they go above and beyond. If there's a project deadline, something is happening, they just go above and beyond to deliver on the outcomes.
Right.
And it's at the end of the day, it's relationships, right? That's what it is. And an integrated team has really good relationship with each other. It's like one culture, one team, one goal, moving in one direction.
One culture, one team, one goal, moving all in the same direction.
Yes.
Nice. Oh my gosh. Okay. So many fun things we could talk about. One of the things that's part of the book is you talk about where future talent markets are going to be coming from as well, which is really fun. So that's a great part of it. You also give checklists for if you are going to do it on your own or attempt to do it on your own, kind of what you need to know how to think about it. So my last couple questions I want to ask you, Sunny, what's your hope for this book? What do you hope that it does? What do you hope for the impact that it has on people's thinking?
Yeah. So my life purpose, Shannon, is to impact 1 million plus human beings in a positive way.
Great.
But I'm hoping from this book is that it add values to people, people where their vision is to build borderless businesses, because borderless businesses do require borderless team. You could be a Starbucks, you could be a McDonald's. Now, I love my Starbucks no matter where I go, because they started from Pike Place in Seattle, then they became borderless. But in order for them to go borderless and do it effectively, they had to figure out a way to build borderless teams.
Mm-hmm.
And I go to now New Delhi, I go to Manila. I think probably in Manila now, there are more Starbucks that I see than New York City. Every single corner, there's a Starbucks.
Wow.
So if you are an entrepreneur who is intentional about building borderless business
Mm-hmm.
and learning borderless teams building is very important.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that my experience, all the experience transformers that I have filled in the past, that you benefit from that.
Mm-hmm.
That's my hope.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sunny. So thank you. This has been a phenomenal conversation. The book totally expanded my thinking. I now know more. I got to contribute a little bit about having an entrepreneurial attitude and the value of profiles as you are putting this great team together. And that was a total joy. So thank you for letting me have a little contribution to your book. So where can people get the book? How can they track you down? How can they find you if they want to learn more about this and they want to expand their impact? And so you can expand your impact. How can they track you down?
A couple of ways, Shannon. One is my company website, which is IT by Design. So itbd.net.
Mm-hmm.
Or they can go to sunnyspeaks.net.
Nice.
Or they can find me on LinkedIn.
Perfect. All good. And your book is available now on Amazon. So the secret to building winning global teams. And I have to say, as someone who, again, team building has been my life's work too, it totally enhanced my thinking. It clarified some approaches. You go through the fears, you go through the obstacles, you give the how-tos, you give some great examples. There's some very fun language examples of how something might say, hey, this really needs to get done. It's different than how you would say it in America, which is really fun. So if you want to just learn some of those nuances, you'll never learn less by grabbing a copy of this book. So Sunny, thank you for writing it. Thank you for, letting me contribute in a small way. And thank you for the time today to kind of share your expertise, all of your learning, painfully gained, I'm sure, in some cases, with other people, because I think it can have a really big impact. So thank you, my friend. Great to have you on the podcast.
Thank you, Shannon. And thank you for your contributions to the book, because people are people everywhere. And there are those universal team success principles that you contributed with. And I'm very excited about kind of really sharing that with the world as well, that what applies everywhere, because you can think global, apply local, but there are some rules that are universal and that are timeless, and you share those.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you very much. And it was absolutely my pleasure. Thanks so much, Sunny.
Thank you, Shannon.